Before we start the episode, it's time to give a very special thank you to our wonderful and lovely patrons. Yes, you heard it right. You're officially called the patrons now. T-shirts with your name and on the back we got Team Patron. Those are going to be coming to you shortly. Not actually though. We don't have the money for that, so you might want to donate to us more. But we would like to give a very special thanks to Rachel DeLisio, John DeLisio, Emma, whose last name I forget right now, and Samuel Copeland.
Dude, we can't. That cannot be the take. Emma Rudder.
Well, I don't know her last. Rudder, is that her last name?
Yes, Emma Rudder is one of our beloved
He
patrons.
Said, put
Put some respect
on her
on
name.
it. And I don't hate to burst your bubble. I don't hate to burst your bubble, but I think they are actually called just patrons. Like
they're called patrons. Patrons is how you pronounce it.
Is it a pronunciation thing or a spelling thing?
It's the same spelling, but we pronounce it as patron.
Patrons?
So the
Isn't
shirt
it
just says
patron?
so the shirt just says patron gang, but it's like no, it's patron.
Yeah, no, but you know it's patron.
I love it.
Are we?
I don't know at this point. Do you?
Rachel, delete here. Just put it here. So I'll say the names and you just replace it.
Yeah.
Rachel DeLisio, John DeLisio, Emma Rudder, and Samuel Copeland. Thank you guys so much for your fantastic support. We love all of you.
You guys are the best.
We appreciate you.
Yes, it's astounding to us that you guys support the show, and we're deeply, eternally grateful. And if you, dear viewer, would like to have your name read out on the show or ask us questions, which you might see happen later, if you want access to all sorts of cool benefits and bonuses and early episodes, consider becoming a Patreon. Becoming a patron at patreon.com/SocraticCinema. Or you can find that link on our new website at SocraticCinema.com.
Oh my God.
Check it. Check the website. WordPress magic. Get her done. Kasey, any parting words?
I would just like to reiterate that we appreciate you guys, and it means a lot to just know that you're like going the extra mile to support us. And yeah, it's really helping us out with how we're kind of looking at the future of the podcast, whether or not we're going to start doing some like editing stuff with other people. And yeah, you're just really helping our like growth and just how everything works behind the scenes. So we really appreciate you guys.
Patrons make the future bright.
They do.
They really do.
Amen, brother.
And without further ado, let's get into today's most exciting and controversial episode of the Socratic Cinema podcast. Blood will be spilled. Sparks will fly. You're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned.
This week on the Socratic Cinema podcast.
This film got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, if I'm not
mistaken.
Absolutely.
Dear viewers, all of the money that you donate on Patreon will go towards therapy lessons for James.
I just want to bring up one point. Since let's talk about consent.
I wasn't gonna bring it up. This movie is full of so much bad,
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Socratic Cinema podcast. I'm Kasey Clark.
I'm Charlie Heatherly.
And I'm James DeLisio.
This week, man, we have something really, really special for y'all. It's a movie that Charlie holds very dear in his heart, and it's a movie that I had the pleasure of stumbling upon. This week, we're looking at Face Off.
Yes.
Wow. Yes.
Yes. Oh,
James
don't
is not
sigh. Don't
happy
sigh.
about it. James was not having a good time, but I'm going to throw it over to Charlie because he is in the Winners Club.
Oh my God. I am in the Winners Club. If you do not like this movie, then you have no soul or sense of fun because John Woo pulled out a banger for Face Off. It is such an inane movie. It makes zero sense at every single turn, and that's the best part of it. This typifies 90s action in the best ways possible. There are explosions. There are squibs left and right. There are like ballistics, tiny little impacts on the walls everywhere. It's crazy. It's wild. It makes no sense. And that's why it's so phenomenal. You get two great actors like Nick Cage and John Travolta, put them together and have them play the same two characters. Crazy. I know. It's insane. You got to watch it. And it just all makes sense. And they both do great jobs acting. Personally, I was actually pretty moved by Nick Cage's performance at some points. closer to the end, I will say. For a huge portion of it, he's just sort of sad and mopey in a prison. But it's a really, really great movie, not because it does anything interesting in its plot or it really makes you consider something. It just makes your soul go yippee-ki-yay, and you just have a good time for the entire runtime. So that's what I liked about it. But from what I hear, actually, should we leave James for last? Because usually we leave the negative Nancy's like myself for last whenever we
Yeah,
do these.
let's let him stew on his bad decisions.
Very fair, very fair. Well, then,
All right.
Kasey.
All right. This movie. It it's a brilliant mix of comedy and of action, and we throw these little inklings of sentimental values and what it truly means
Preach.
to
I can't. I
Oh
can't. I
my-
can't take it. This is gonna be a 20-minute episode.
oh my gosh. And it's just it's a crazy movie. As Charlie was saying, like I was watching, especially in the face swap scene, like the whole movie is set up on the idea of this like cop is going to switch faces with this criminal who killed his son, and then like he just like lives the rest of the movie as all this stuff. A lot of this doesn't make sense to people with common sense. Like me personally, I'd never agree to that, especially with like how quickly it turns left, as we'll talk about
Yeah.
later. But like it's amazingly bad that it's good.
This film, I was appalled 5 minutes in, and I was appalled 2 hours and 20 minutes in when the credits started to roll. In fact, no, I was glad when it was over because this absolute waste of 2 valuable hours of my life came to a conclusion. This film pushed me past the breaking point. I
Wow.
have no clue how on earth this film got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Deserved.
if I'm not
Deserved.
Deserved.
Absolutely. This not the most I can muster is a 6 out of 10.
Oh
This
my
movie,
God.
everything,
Wow.
the camp you guys liked in this movie made me want to pull my hair out. This solidified that I hate action movies. It's like if you took the sort of movie Die Hard is and then took out all of the redeeming qualities and left just the absolutely infuriating, idiotic action behind. I thought Nick Cage's performance was grating. I hated it. It was so terrible to watch him in either character. John Travolta was better. I'll give him that. I liked seeing bad guy John Travolta. I liked seeing good guy John Travolta. It was uncomfortable, but I can get that that's the point. But it was just so bad. None of the plot developments seemed to have any rhyme or reason. Things just kind of happened, and you just have to go along with it. I thought the interaction between Travolta and Nick Cage in the first half of the movie was terrible, to be frank. The second half of the movie, I will say, was better than the first half. And there was even some parts in the third act that I kind of liked. I will give it that. I concede. But this movie had no right to be this long. You have to suffer through 40 minutes of some of the most awful film I've ever seen to get to the actual face swap, the only reason you're here. I'm at my wit's end. The writing, I can't, guys. I hated Face Off.
So, dear viewers, all of the money that you donate on Patreon will go towards therapy lessons for James.
For James.
We're going to be taking him through very slowly why this movie is good, and he does need a therapist after this because I've never seen him so angry at anything.
He's so
I hated it. I got it through. I didn't want to watch this movie at all. I didn't have the guts to tell Charlie and Kasey I didn't want to watch it. I didn't know. I Googled the premise and I was like, seriously? This is what we're doing. I'm never letting you guys pick a film ever again if this is what you guys bring me. I'm sorry.
Oh my! I had to suffer through Napoleon Dynamite and The Irishman for you, James. And you're
Okay,
saying
you know
that
what?
This is worse.
But the thing is those ones are good.
Irishman is 3 hours long.
But The Irishman is at least like good acting at the
You
very
know-
minimum.
Crazy.
You know what the Irishman in this movie have in common?
They're what?
They're both nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did Face Off get nominated for?
Best effects and sound effects editing.
I would have given it Best Picture.
Best effects, all right, sure, I
The
guess. Except
face
the face
swap.
Mhm.
swap, sure, that's it. But it's not even like I think hearing about a movie where like people swap faces, getting nominated for best effects would make sense. Like, wow, they must have done some crazy effects to pull that off. Except there's no effect required. You just tell the actors to pretend they're the other person. Okay.
Okay, well, hold on. Hold on. Let's not forget that John Woo managed to stage a practical effect where a boat used another boat
Oh
as a ramp.
yes, as a ramp.
Okay.
Let's not forget that.
All right. I
He
will.
got harpooned.
There was some very good effects, but the thing is, none of them made sense. None of the explosions in this movie needed to be actual explosions. I'm just like the boats would like scratch each other, and then suddenly they're infernally combusting. I
How
I
do you
don't
know that's not how boats work?
because that's
Yeah.
not how boats work.
I don't know, man.
If you crash a if you crash a car into a concrete wall, it's not gonna explode. It's gonna crash and crumple, and that's it.
I've never seen a car crash into a
But this
concrete wall in person.
argument, you have to also make that argument for like Christopher Nolan films because he'd be blowing up
And
True.
guess
any
what?
and
And guess
everything.
what? And guess what? Christopher Nolan is I have said this before, I've said it again. I will say it a million times. Christopher Nolan, sometimes I feel like we should just acknowledge that he's kind of just like a better version of Michael Bay. Like
What are you saying?
Christopher Nolan's a great
Oh,
director.
dang.
Christopher Nolan's a great director, but he definitely has some Michael Bay tendencies, you know? He definitely is a
Yeah.
little explosion happy. And I think that's healthy to recognize. I like Christopher Nolan, don't get me wrong, but he has some Michael Bay blood.
I don't think there's a single explosion in the film Prestige.
I haven't seen Prestige. Isn't that the one with the they're like magicians, right?
Yes, it is my favorite movie of all time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Now I want to watch. Well, actually, seeing how your taste has been so far, I don't know if I want to watch it. If
Look.
it's another Die Hard, if it's another
Die
like
Hard, you agreed that Die
Die
Hard was a
Hard
great
was
movie.
good.
What are you
Die Hard
talking
was
about?
good. Like I said before, Die Hard, like I think this movie has made me realize I hate action movies. I hate action movies so much because there's nothing going on here at all. It's it's literally it's just you just put it on and your brain, you feel your brain like numbing while you watch this movie. I can't. I need, you know,
I was fully
maybe
awake.
may
My
Yeah.
third
really?
eye was open.
Are you
watching
kidding?
this movie.
My
I
soul was
was
taken for a journey,
dude,
James. I
I
said
had
that.
to like check the clock every 5 minutes. Here's the weird part is we paused the movie when the face swap was happening and
Yeah.
it was 40 minutes in and I was like, "Wow, it's already been 40 minutes?" And then what felt like 5 hours later, we paused it again and there was still an hour and a half to go in the movie. This film is a
Wait.
drag.
I think that's physically impossible.
I
think you would have
know.
had to roll backwards to
It's
get
not
an hour and a half later. This
To
movie,
get right.
I don't know where your math is coming from, buddy.
I don't know either. And then I got through what I thought was the climax of the movie, or what I thought should have been the climax of the movie, and there was still 30 more minutes.
What did you think the
Yeah,
climax of
what
the
did
movie
you
should have
think?
been?
I think, when Travolta raids that apartment place where Nick Cage is staying with
Oh,
his
yeah.
friends, that should
Yeah.
the final confrontation should have been there. It should have ended there. That's
How
it. There was no reason for this whole weird speedboat chase. It was just so unnecessary.
but they couldn't have swapped faces.
They could have.
I don't
All
know.
that
I don't know.
they told that I don't okay, listen. I just feel like the last 30 minutes they were like, "You know what? We have an extra couple $1,000,000 in the budget, guys. Let's just let it go, you know?" I j I
But
this
without that
movie
extra 30 minutes, we would have never gotten our biblical imagery that we
Yeah.
so desperately
James.
needed in this film.
it didn't
Don't you
even
like biblical imagery? Like,
it
just
didn't even
let's focus on the parts you
signify.
like.
Huh? Okay, yeah, we can focus on the parts I like. I thought that raid of the apartment complex was really good. I thought that was genuinely good. The
Mhm.
somewhere over the rainbow with the little kid, that was great. I thought that was good stuff. There was one part where John Travolta and Nick Cage are hiding on opposite sides of this mirror, and they like point the gun,
Oh, I
and there's this cool
really loved that.
It was
there's
really good.
there's this cool imagery of like, oh, it's Travolta's pointing the gun back at himself in the mirror and Nick Cage is doing the same. And it's like, the lines are getting blurred. And I thought that was really cool. And they would maybe lay into that theme a little more of how like they're sort of becoming like literally becoming the people they imitated. And you sort of get hints of that with Nick Cage sleeping with the bad guy's friends, and bad guy John Travolta is actually, starting to like care about his daughter and stuff. It's like, oh, cool. The lines are kind of getting blurred, and maybe this will turn out really interesting. No, never mind. Never mind. They threw all that out the window in the last half an hour. I just also I realized this is gonna be really confusing because I always denote characters by the actor names. And but in this movie, the character is a very separate thing than the actor playing them,
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
if you say Nick Cage, that
I
that
mean a
could
lot of
be
things.
one of two people. So there was some stuff I liked for sure.
Mhm. So you said 6 out of 10 on a good day. I think you're absolutely crazy, James. This movie, for context, as I said, was a John Woo film, and John Woo is sort of like, how do I put this? He's the Hong Kong cinema representative of the world, essentially. What he
I
does
see.
is he takes the style of Hong Kong cinema, specifically action movies in Hong Kong cinema, which are very bloody, they're very over the top, they're very just all over the place, and he gave them to an American audience in the form of Face Off. And in all of his movies, he has a couple signature trademarks that he always needs to run through. In this movie, you saw doves, you saw trench coats and sunglasses, you saw the back to back on the wall. He does that a whole lot. The double guns. I think those are, oh, lots of sliding as well. Church fight scenes he does in multiple movies. A
Yeah.
lot of this, he was just reusing content that he had from past movies and then giving it to an American audience because they had never seen this stuff before with a movie that was made in their country, essentially.
And
So a lot of the crazy stuff actually has some cultural significance going back to Hong Kong. But I understand that you thought a lot of it was inane and crazy and weird. But I think that the movie very clearly makes an attempt to say, hey, we're not trying to be serious in the slightest at any given moment. Like, we are being, balls to the wall, 11 out of 10 constantly throughout the entire film. And that's sort of the expectation you have to have going in. So if you went into this thinking, oh, this is going to be like a cool film like Die Hard with great action, great plot, it's like, no, no, this
see,
is all emotion.
I feel lied to by Rotten Tomatoes, I think, because I saw 94 and I was like, oh, this is actually going to be like a really good movie with lots of substance. Shame on me for thinking that. I see. This is you're when you rate something, you have to make it clear whether you're rating it based on like what it is or based on all other movies. Because a 10 out of 10 action film, in my opinion, is very different than a 10 out of 10 film. Like, if you go to Rotten Tomatoes and you look at everything that's gotten a 94%, I'm sure some of those will be objectively astronomically better than Face Off. But compared to the vast majority of all mediocre action movies out there, Face Off may very well be in the upper strata of those. It might be a 94 compared to all other action movies, but compared to all other movies, I think it's like a 60. I just I feel so deceived by Rotten Tomatoes. I went in expecting like I think I had the wrong expectations for what this movie was gonna be, which
Y-
is partly my
Yeah,
fault.
that's
yeah,
fair.
I mean, for Rotten Tomatoes, you like 94 is not a grade. It's not like this movie was a 94 out of 100. It was that 94% of critics agreed that it was good.
Ah, yeah, I always
So
forget that.
like it could be a consistent like 7 out of 10, but 94% of people say that it's a 7 out of 10 as opposed to like a 5 out of 10.
Oh, see, yeah, I didn't really know that. I didn't really think about that.
We hate to interrupt your delightful experience watching the beloved Socratic Cinema podcast. We'll get back to the show in just a minute, but right now it's time for one of our favorite segments here on the show, Patron Q and A, to be replaced with a quirkier, wittier name sometime soon when we think of one. But
this month's special patron question. For those of you who don't know, every month, patrons of a certain tier submit questions for us to answer out on the show, like a fun little Q&A thing. So this month's patron question comes from our beloved Samuel Copeland. Samuel writes, what are the gang's favorite genres of film? Very interesting, Mr. Copeland. Very interesting. I have my answer, but who wants to start us off? Because I don't want to I don't want to be rude.
I'll start us off. I'll do it.
Do it.
I'll be brave. So the way that I found at least some of my options, I went to Google and searched favorite genre of film. Because I genuinely had no gosh darn clue what the heck I was going to say, and I came across some good options. I came across heist. Heist is a really good one. Animación. Don't know what the heck that is, and these are all Google listed, by the way.
Animation.
Well, I mean, yeah,
But just like
French,
the French
Oh,
kind.
gotcha.
Yeah.
The French.
Apparently, LGBT is a genre of movie. I was not aware of that one. But I think the one that I've settled on 100% has got to be coming of age story. You got your classics and you got your new ones. I'm voiding on all of the names right now. Breakfast Club is great. I think that's coming of age.
Sure.
There's Booksmart, the one that I talked about at some previous episode. That one's really great. And just as a teen, I feel really good watching them because I feel like there are people who are listening to the story that I'm experiencing and then putting that on the screen. And as we've gone into a more modern age, I think finally we're starting to get coming of age stories that aren't about like horrendous, insane bullying practices like getting swirly. That seems crazy to me, and like that's a different world. So I'm glad that the genre is evolving, and that's got to be my pick.
Very, very nice. Very coming of age is a
Yes.
strong pick. Kasey, what about you?
I think I'll have to go with drama. I love
Mm.
myself a good conflict. I love watching dramas with other people, especially. Like, I feel like drama, thriller, like, especially with other people, are like, oh, yes. And even like live, not like live tweeting, but when you're like texting someone when you're watching a movie, and you're like, yo,
Oh
what is
yeah.
going on? And it just, because it really, I like being entertained and kind of like pulled into a movie, like if it's very like
Yeah.
interesting or there's like different moving parts and then it all like kind of falls together. Like I love that final like resolution. And even if it's like a crappy drama, I will live for tearing it to shreds as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, that would be for
drama's
True.
me.
great. It's such a good not to say catch-all, but it's a very like diverse, wide genre. A lot of stuff
Yeah.
can fall under drama. It's very, very nice. My favorite film genres, two come to mind. One, I've talked about it all sorts of times, is the Western. I love Western stories, lone travelers, forlorn gunsmen. I live for that kind of stuff. Some of my favorite movies or some of my favorite Westerns are like High Noon. I love the Coen brothers' True Grit, Unforgiven. I mean, the classics, whatever. But Westerns, I kill for it. And I love how you can sort of take that Western flavor and spin it through different aesthetics. Like Mandalorian is like a cool space Western, or even stuff like samurai stories to me are sort of like Westerns. I just think there's a lot of cool ways you can go with it. And the other genre that comes to mind is old campy teen romances. I'm talking like Some Kind of Wonderful. I'm talking She's All That.
Oh,
I'm talking
yes.
Say Anything. I don't know what it is, but those movies make me feel so good. Some Kind of Wonderful
The flavor.
is
Immaculate.
is
A
immaculate.
bop.
Some kind of we gotta talk. Oh man. All right, but yeah, it's just it's sort of like those are like guilty pleasure movies. I just like to feel happy, when I watch them. They're very opposite sides of the movie verse, westerns and old teen romances. But I think they sort of come together to make something beautiful. thank you. On that note,
Oh,
thank
so
you so
sweet.
much.
He never gets this sentimental in person, guys. It's
No, I'm stone cold. But
Yep.
thank you so much, Samuel Copeland, for your question of the month. If you would like to have your question featured on the show, dear viewer, if you want to be the star of our next segment of Patron Q and A, to be replaced by a quick, wittier name when we come up with it, that's going to be fun to edit. Become a patron. Consider it. Only $1 a month. Sorry for shilling so much, but HR, our hands are kind of tied. We got to meet our quotas here. Sorry. Thank you so much. This has been another segment of Patron Q and A. Thanks, and let's get back. Let's get back to Face Off, huh? Shall we?
Yep, Face Off. I mean, personally, I think that Face Off is a really great action film. I think Woo's made some better ones, but I mean, I'm reading the reviews, and a lot of people agree that this is just, well, here, I'll read this review from David Anson from Newsweek. Woo, a master of poetical carnage, mixes quiche, sadism, or kitsch, sorry, mixes kitsch, sadism,
Egg pie.
egg pie. He mixes egg pie in there.
Egg pie.
Sentiment and comedy with choreographic precision. I will say the choreography in this is pretty good. I think that this movie is fairly funny. The moments that I thought that you would be turned off by most, James, were the ones where you had Nick Cage doing crazy Nick Cage things where he's like grabbing people's butts
Oh, I hated all of that.
while they're
Oh,
in a
yeah.
choir.
No, yeah,
But
that was all. I hated all of that so much.
I
The
will say that
eyes, the
serves a
crazy
purpose, though.
eyes.
Yeah,
like-
Nick Cage's crazy eyes.
Nick Cage has great crazy eyes, but all of that badness from Castor Troy is like just meant to showcase how much of a horrible man he is. Like Castor is crazy. So I think
Yeah.
what this film does really well, actually, is it makes you think that you know how Castor Troy acts when John Travolta first gets into the prison, or John Travolta's character trapped inside Nick Cage's body.
Yes.
Like you see him acting as Castor Troy or Nick Cage, and you're like, that's not really how he would act. And it's very obvious that his brother is like, something is very off here, because Nick Cage is so over the top usually, right? And then we get into the prison and he's like, oh brother, I bring news from the outside world, like
Yeah.
just very demure. So if this movie does one thing right, it's its subtle attention to character details and its consistency with how these characters are portrayed across two actors, which is
Mhm.
something that I think deserves a little bit of praise. Because how hard must it be to, number one, get a good character in one actor, and then number two, get a consistent character for two actors? Like that seems like, I don't think I've seen that before in a movie. So that's what Face Off showed me, was some very good technical ability from these actors, and on the side of a lot of the stunt directors as well.
Yeah, I think I've seen this, like the people switching places in Harry Potter. To be honest, like that was like one of my main thing while watching this. I was like,
Wait.
this is like that one scene
What Harry Potter
where-
movie?
where in the Deathly Hallows where Hermione has to be Bellatrix and then she's struggling being
Oh,
Bellatrix.
Yeah.
I
And, like-
forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's just like exactly what Charlie was saying. Like when I was watching a behind the scenes thing and it was talking to Helena Bohem Carter, being like, yeah, I had to pretend to be like Emma being Emma Watson, and being like, how would Hermione think that Bellatrix would act? You know, and you kind of like feel this kind of hesitation in like the actual scenes in the movie, like especially in like Gringotts Bank, where she's like, oh, I actually have to be like kind of crazy, which is relating to like the prison scene that Charlie was talking about. Like when Sean I'm confusing myself. When John Travolta comes in as Castor Troy, he's, as Charlie was saying, very like, oh brother, yada yada yada. Very like, he was giving me like Scar, very like kind of calculating, where that's the brother's role. Like the brother's like the quiet brains, calculating and all that stuff. And he has to like, and Travolta as Troy has to like start a fight and like physically beat the crap out of someone to like be like, because he's walking in and all these eyes are on him. And I was watching it with my parents and I look over to my mom. I was like, he's not selling it. I'm not buying it. And I'm like, I can't imagine these like criminals buying it either. And even to like I, that was my thing. Like, how are you gonna research this guy and then not know? Like, he
That
was
he's
just
crazy.
slipping out of he was slipping out
Mhm.
of character, and I was like, come
I
on,
know. Where
Travolta,
was
we
the
gotta.
dedication?
Where was the dedication? But then once he beat that man within an inch of his life.
Yeah, I liked seeing how he was sort of like tempted kind of with the dark side, where he was like, we got to see this crazy like FBI agent really let loose, and like
Yeah,
embrace the I've been reading some Carl Jung, embrace his inner shadow, to use Jungian terms.
My God.
his
I thought
inner
that was cool.
saboteur.
I thought that was cool, and if they had gone further with it and maybe like done something crazy where by the end of the movie Castor Troy's more of a good guy and John Travolta's more of a whatever his name is, Sean Astor's more of the bad guy, right? That would have been crazy and cool and gave this movie some substance that would make me maybe understand something like a 94. But it just I don't know. Okay, wait. I have a genuine question, guys.
Yes.
Is there ever any indication as to why Castor Troy shot Sean Ashton, whatever's
Oh,
son?
Oh, wait, that was
yes.
like a major thing in the film.
Well, because
Yeah.
he was like, "I meant to kill you."
Yeah,
Uh,
he meant to kill him, and then it went
why?
through him and hit the child.
This was
Yeah.
before their whole rivalry was a thing. Why did he want to kill Sean Astor?
Well,
Well,
because Sean was trying to like put him away, like in jail for whatever criminal stuff that he was doing. And then so he was like, no, I'm gonna take Sean out. And then I believe the thing that at least I saw that it was like on the merry-go-round, Sean was at like an angle where you couldn't see the kid. And when
Are
he like
you
came around
kidding?
the corner, he like shot him.
The
yeah.
merry-go-round literally gives you a 3 it no matter where you are, you get a 3 I mean, how did he not s the merry-go-round spins. I can't think of an angle where you would never see the kid. Like,
Well,
the
Well, he
merry-go-round
did.
spins, it
well,
gives
he
you all
didn't.
360 degrees.
Even if he saw the kid, he was still probably aiming for John Travolta and then
But
just
I
Yeah.
accidentally shot the
The
kid.
merry-go-round's the real villain.
I
so
think that's one of the parts of this movie that makes the most sense is that he accidentally shot the kid.
right, I get maybe that his intention wasn't to shoot the kid. I get that. Like, I get that he wanted to shoot Sean Astor, but I think I'm saying his last name wrong. I don't think that's his last name.
It's Astor.
Sean Astor? It is?
Mhm.
His first name
Sean
is
Astor
Sean?
and Castor Troy. Yeah.
Astor Caster? That's
Astor
nice.
Castor.
Um, I yeah, I think,
It's Sean Archer.
Sean
Oh,
Archer? Oh,
sure.
oops. Oopsies.
Never
I
mind.
just
I said
alright.
that so
I'm not
so
quite
sure.
sold on why he wanted to kill Sean Archer so badly. I mean,
He's
I
a cop.
Well, we could have
it
spent
could
He's
have
a
40 more minutes of
criminal.
backstory.
it could have been yeah, honestly, maybe cut some of the garbage filler in the first 40 minutes before they swap faces.
What,
I
the
don't know.
plane fight? Are you kidding me? That was so cool.
Yes! No, oh my gosh. Literally every 5 minutes, my dad and brother, who I watched this with, and we were like, "This is terrible. This is so bad." It was a communal agreeance. Um,
Oh man.
I had something I wanted to say too. I'm trying to
Oh, I want
remember.
to bring up a point about the kid that the
Oh, yeah, that
they
was
didn't
funny.
change the actor. The actor like
Okay, so it literally was the same kid.
it's
Was
the
it?
same kid.
Do we have
I
IMDb
am like
confirmation?
I am like
I can
100%.
try and get it.
Oh
It
my
Hold
looked
on, I
gosh.
have it pulled
almost
up, but it
identical.
was like the same child.
I know. Sean Ashton
Archer.
Archer
Archer.
literally had no like actual connection to this kid. He was like, "You look like my son." He called him Mikey. Like
It's the same kid.
that's so messed up though. That kid is gonna be traumatized because his whole life, his dad is gonna be like trying to mold him into how his old son was.
Dang. Well,
This is gonna
that's
be
the
really messed
sequel.
up. Yeah, this is Face Off too.
Face
Yeah. I hope I hope we never have to deal with a Face Off too. I
I
think we're
don't know.
past it though.
This
Do
was
you
a
think
really good movie, I think.
yeah, was it?
Very good. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Um,
you know what bothered me? I don't think anything necessarily like bothered me about this film because I
Really? Nothing?
knew that it was just because everything's like if
Yeah.
it don't make sense, it's a campy I don't know, action
Oh, that's
movie.
so I
Like that's how I
disagree with
like
that mindset.
compartmentalize it.
Well, why do you
I'm
like Spider-Man 1 then, James? Like that movie is super
ooh.
duper campy.
Okay,
This
but there's
movie is
okay.
also super duper campy.
But the thing with Spider-Man 1 is in addition to the camp, there's lots of good emotional substance and thematic content there. It has camp is fine as long as there's stuff on top of the if it's going to be camp, it has to be good camp, I think. And there has to be stuff along with it. This to me is bad camp. Like there's a clear distinction. Stuff like Some Kind of Wonderful or Say Anything, that's good camp because it's campy, but it makes me feel good. Face Off is campy that just makes me cringe. I don't know why. I need to do some soul searching on my where I draw the line with camp.
I mean, I would say that Face Off has a lot of good emotional moments in it. Like they play up the whole I don't know who I am anymore. I am literally in the body of my, child's murderer thing
Yeah,
pretty
worst
well.
enemy.
Yeah,
Like-
maybe except for Nick Cage just sucks at acting, I guess, because I couldn't stand to watch him show any emotion.
You
couldn't
just don't like Nick Cage. I thought he was great. I thought he
Yeah,
was
maybe
great
I
in this
just don't like
movie.
Nick Cage. I don't know.
Like-
Like trying to figure it out, guys.
To me, Nick Cage and John Travolta are basically two sides of the well, actually no, not two sides of the same coin. They're the same side of the same coin. Both of them are crazy people, and they just got the two craziest actors in Hollywood and had them do the exact same thing, and I think both of them did a perfectly great job. Like there's a reason Nick Cage keeps getting cast in things, and there was a reason that John Travolta kept getting cast in things until he stopped getting cast in things. But
Yeah.
like they picked the best actors for this, and I think that both of them do a fairly good job. I will agree, I think that Spider-Man 1 probably has some more coherent thematic elements, but for this movie, I think that a lot of the main push of the plot and the push of the themes that are happening come directly in this sort of like, who am I? How can I reconcile this horrible event that happened in my past with what I'm doing right now? And you sort of see this guy who's been consumed by anger and rage slowly and gradually grow more and more sane through his experiences and come to the conclusion that he no longer needs to hold on to that memory and that he's overcome it. I thought that was a fairly, good emotional sort of arc. I enjoyed that. So when you say it's bad camp, I don't know what's bad about it. It feels like camp to me. It feels like it has some good thematic and emotional elements, although not as good as some other movies, I will agree.
I think I just like to me, a sign of good camp is it makes me happy. Like the goofiness makes me smile, I don't know why, but Face Off's goofiness didn't make me smile. It just made me feel hollow. It made, it made me feel like why I can see how this movie would work for some people. I just think I don't like action and I don't like Nick Cage. So that no matter what happens, the camp wouldn't. I think I was like predestined to just not like this movie. It's just not compatible with my taste. Like,
it is true. You do like Red Dead Redemption, which is a 70-hour story where 35 hours of it is horse riding.
and it's
Dang.
No
also
slow pace.
Shots
it's also filled to
fired.
the brim with gorgeous character interactions, a slow burn character progression with a thrilling redemption arc,
Damn, is it a
All
slow
right.
burn?
a plot build that slowly
What-
gets more and more off the rails as you realize that Arthur Morgan's family is crumbling around. Oh my gosh. Listen.
I love Red Dead 2 as much as the next guy. I just like taking
you
part in
love
shots
Red
at
Dead
it.
2 too? You love
I
Red
do.
Dead 2 too?
I do love Red Dead 2 too. Tee 2 2. Like the
All right,
pig
let's-
Oh my god.
Charlie, don't you have somewhere to be? Don't we gotta go?
Yeah, I have somewhere to be at 10:30.
Yikes, it's 10:21, ladies and gents, on beautiful January 7th. I like to say the date. It's January 17th, just so that by the time this episode comes out, we can say, haha, you're hearing this a month late, I just think it's funny. So,
Man.
yeah.
You are a
maybe-
strange,
I just want to
beautiful
bring
man
up, no,
that I will
one
never
point.
understand.
Stop interrupting Kasey, Charlie. God.
I
Sorry.
just want to bring up one point. Since let's talk about consent. For
I wasn't gonna bring it up. This movie is full of so much bad, eesh.
It was the 90s.
man.
That's how the 90s worked.
It's like the Wonder Woman problem. It's like the Wonder Woman
Yes.
84 problem, but cranked to 11.
How can
Yeah.
you consent when not in your own body in Wonder Woman, but how can you consent in someone else's body with their wife?
Okay, well, hold on. It's not someone else's body. It's someone else's face. Let's get
And
the
he-
facts right.
That's
But
true.
they got plastics. Okay, fair
But it's
enough.
still
All
like
right.
it's still intrinsically their body, you know.
It's like the
identity theft.
dubious is of consent.
Yes, it is.
The
it
most
is.
dubious.
Hmm.
But it's not technically like because I feel like for consent you have to have full knowledge of the situation, which though neither Sasha nor Eve had. So technically I would feel that they aren't fully in a position to consent because they don't actually know. Like I'm thinking
Yeah,
of this
I
from a
agree.
theological standpoint, where like from a theological standpoint, for something to be considered like something that you consent to, like two of the requirements for something are like full consent and full knowledge of the situation. So if you lack
Yes.
either of those things, like they consented but they didn't have full knowledge, so it wasn't really like they
Consent. Yeah.
can't be held fully accountable for that, like it's
Mhm.
I'm talking about from the perspective of the women, not the men. And the men are, they knew what was going on and they did it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think that makes it worse.
very much dubious. I like how Eve apologized and was like, "I'm sorry, sweetie, I slept with your lookalike." And then Nick Cage was just like, "It's okay, I forgive you." Proceeds to not mention that he did the same thing. he was really like, "Whew, I'm safe." Like she's gonna take the brunt.
It's like it zeroes out. It's like
I know, but like, why did he not? That was the time to tell her. He could have been like, "It's okay, I did the same thing," but he was just like, "Oh no, I I forgive you. That's fine."
and then
Don't worry
also
about it.
brings that lady's son to be your
Oh my
stand-in
gosh.
son.
Mhm.
And
I would have
poor-
been pissed.
The poor daughter too. I was so afraid
Jamie,
at first
oh.
with I was so afraid of what Castor Troy was gonna do to her. But then I thought it was kind of cool how we sort of came around and like beat up her garbage boyfriend and gave her the knife.
Oh,
Like
Carl.
Chekhov's knife. Chekhov's knife. That
Chekhov's
was
knife.
Yeah.
that was great. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I liked that progression. But guys, for the sake of Charlie's time, we have to go.
That's true.
Oh, pin it on me. I see.
Yeah, this is a super brief episode of the Socratic Cinema podcast, everyone. But I hope you liked it. I hope you liked seeing me be the bad guy for once. It's about time. But if you enjoyed this episode of the Socratic Cinema podcast, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click that notification bell. And if you're on Spotify, keep doing what you're doing. If you're on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and write us a review and tell us how you like the show and what we can do better, and give us a rating. And we'll maybe even read your review out if it's not full of bad things, If you want to support the channel, consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month. There's lots of cool benefits, as you saw like a month ago in the Ma Rainey episode. I had to think really hard about the continuity there. But yeah, thanks a ton for hanging around with us about Face Off. Let us know in the comments or in an Apple Podcast review or an Instagram DM or an email or whatever. Do you like Face Off? I will only judge you a little bit depending on how you answer.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, thanks again, everybody. You're lovely. Have a wonderful day and wonderful week. We'll see you next time. We've been the Socratic Cinema Podcast LLC. Thank you and adios.
Adios. You never get it right. Not a
Adios.
single time.
I was gonna say adios and then wait for us all to do it, and then I join back in like a call and response.